Chapter 2. Who am I? My name is Anthony Manalakos. I am a regular, working-class citizen from Massillon, Ohio, and I'd like to earn your vote for President of the United States of America. I do not take lightly the gravity of this moment, with the country floating at sea on a small boat, waiting for the next act of violence or injustice to shatter through the water's surface. Leadership is the decision about what type of vessel we must build together in preparation for the storms of tomorrow. I do not take lightly any citizen's vote in this momentous time of change. I hope to change the conversation and give a focused vision to the liberal movement with specific goals, building blocks that we, the people, can carve into new sculptures of law and service desperately needed to lead our populace forward. I grew up on the edge of town in Massillon, Ohio. Rolling Hills Trailer Park is a mobile home community adorned with older trees, clean streets, and beautiful amenities. The best part was all the kids running around, all available without me needing to leave the comfort of my own 2 feet. The cornerstone of Rolling Hills was an awesome park, sitting quaintly nestled in the lower part of the property. I have fond memories of zooming towards it on my bike rides, flying down the hills at top speed, crouched down to make sure to limit drag. There was also a little conference center, baseball diamond, and a small gas tower that will almost break both of your legs if you jumped off it and the older kids failed to educate you on the novel concept of shock force. At the conference center, the Boys and Girl Scouts would meet, allowing me to sneak in occasionally and get some much-needed hard skills without the unpleasantries of paying and registering. With a single mother and a strict religious grandfather attempting to beat the devil out of me, I roamed the streets early, expanding outside the park quickly into the big world inside my little town. I would roam into the forgotten factories, now long abandoned, wondering how so much useful space could sit empty. I lived in the small single-wad trailer with my mother, brother, and grandfather. My grandfather, a West Virginia transplant, now living on Social Security, was a hard man that fought in Korea and worked for a steel mill for nearly 30 years. Only to have his pension vanish, replaced with a paltry payout forced down our citizens' throats when steel left our town. My brother and I had been reacquired from Texas after my mother's failed relationship with my father, both of us still very young. With a fledgling single mother, we all had difficulties, as all impoverished do, struggling to get the necessities to exist in our empire. However, in our most dire times of need, my brother and I were kept under the wings of the government, getting every type of assistance my mother qualified for, no more important than food. During the young years of my life, I looked forward to the first of the month with great zeal. It meant a high-end box cereal of Cookie Crisp or Lucky Charms was going to be bought. As long as I got to the Lucky Charms before my brother did, all the marshmallows would remain intact. That box would be gone in a day, but remembered long after, with happy little tummies looking forward to what might come next month. Looking back even for a family with more money, I'm sure, between the appetites of my brother and I, we would have shaken even the sturdiest of budgets. Without food stamps and free lunch, 2 pieces I think critical to the ability to learn and excel, I likely would not be writing you today. Lunch was always my favorite class, with Pizza Wednesdays and Taco Day shooting to the top of the list. My nickname in the 4th grade would become garbage disposal, as I would collect the food from other children's trays and eat it right there or save it for later. One day, collecting the unwanted tacos from the table would lead me to setting a brand new, completely arbitrary record within my little school. Students began to gather around once I ate the 9th taco, with 1 more left on my little tray to go. Teachers and monitors, noticing the ruckus, began scuttling over as the bell rung in the background. As the students noticed, the adults started to march over with cries of, "Eat it! Eat it!" starting to be screamed in the background, sending my confidence soaring. I left that lunch hall having to be picked up and dragged from that table with that 10th taco in my mouth. That record would not be broken due to one of the worst stomach aches of my life, a key early lesson about the pressures of crowds to my own ego. A governor recently passed a bill in Minnesota that would make all lunches free in his state. Perhaps no bill has had such a peculiar guttural effect on me like this one, knowing its importance and the real impact it was going to make on his young citizens. This is legislation that moves working people, and I personally think is good governance. Ubiquitous in nature and backed with sound cost-benefit analysis, it is a wonderful marketing concept for the state, setting itself apart from others. The investment in brain capital and underrated abstraction of the newly fed and supercharged minds will be better able to competently listen and learn. A long-term benefit with incalculable benefits. Thank you, Governor Walz. Back when I got free lunch, you were separated in line and had to fill out paperwork every day. This was a devastating proposition that I know left a lot of other young children hungry. And it was one of the first times early in my life I was ashamed of being poor, but never left unfed. Teachers and librarians were some of the most critical and kind community members to help me through my formative years, a sympathy that I carry now for others. These community leaders were compassionate when it seemed a foreign idea by many in my community. Sure, I was on the road right to the jailhouse. I lived in the Massillon Public Library as a teenager, a beautifully sculpted building with grand columns up front, yet neatly nestled right in our main street. It was by far my favorite building in the city, an air-conditioned citadel where I traveled around the world discovering Tom Sawyer and Tom Waits, curiously reading about the boom years when Canton, Ohio, now nearly a century back, when it was still called Little Chicago, a must-see destination when traveling to New York City from the West. I visited some of the fanciest libraries this world has to offer, and it's still my favorite. Libraries had just begun serving a new, expanded multimedia experience in my town, so now there was a one-stop shop for everything I needed, from books to music, all for free. All served up by sweet ladies that could show you how to access all the information you'd ever need. The value to me as a citizen and as an individual is incalculable. Teachers share quite a large place in my heart as well, instrumental in smacking the back of my head all the way up the K through 12 ladder, clumsily stumbling and somersaulting up, making many mistakes along the way. Family is where you find it, and I had a genuine, true love for my fellow schoolmates and teachers alike, working people struggling and suffering, putting them up with an ornery, rebellious child, and teaching me damn well anyway. I was desperate for attention. Mixed with self-hatred and destruction, all of us feel a little bit as teenagers. I often acted out and was very disruptive. This would fade as I grew older, unsure of the future that I wanted to seek. Suddenly, I was finding myself playing with an idea of leadership as I reached the end of my high school career. This had been a very stark turnaround from a troubled adolescence, resting very much on the shoulders of great teachers, coaches, extended family, librarians, and all the people that support them. It takes a village, as the well-known saying states. I know these stories like mine happen every day, as these institutions make life in our empire much better than any one of us as a sole individual in any part of the country can realize. Rich people have now given me the impression that they do not care about these institutions in the same way working people do. I have not given nearly back enough to librarians or teachers, but will be a warrior against the politicians and corporations alike that prey on our communities for political gain. I would go to join the Air Force in 2004 after college proved too expensive and the lack of a clear vision had me roaming around at night getting into trouble all over the town. The military would prove the most difficult part of my journey. Feeling the most rebellious in my life just as I had signed a serious contractual agreement with the government. I fell into the typical trap as many men do of a lack of higher purpose and expectations of myself, boozing and longing for something I could not put my fingers on. I did, however, learn at a very good police academy and spent many years dealing with the use of force situations and training that I think would be valuable to a national conversation. I was not the best airman, unable to focus on my own service before self, lost in a feeling sorry for myself with much death in my early military career. A young, ignorant man unable to seek help, I would finish my service and then attach myself to a destructive relationship that would take me a full decade to build my life back up after. I was with the protesters gushing into the streets of Chicago after the death of George Floyd, looking for answers into a starless, smoke-filled sky billowing between as red and blue lights reflected the broken glass of our beloved city. The electricity of a people when collectively struggling in real time is something I will never forget and changed me irrevocably. I was there to help clean up the next morning as our city began to pick up the physical and emotional pieces. I was there helping coordinate on-the-ground resources in Canada during the Canadian trucker protest, even after our own news media and so-called liberal outlets turned against these working-class men. I've been roaming the internet, trying to inspire new ideas for labor movements, and on the floor of labor notes, watching the new leaders of tomorrow being carved. I work in cybersecurity by day, as an engineer, unable to move up the corporate ladder because middle management seems unnecessary. Now, my wife and I recently bought a dilapidated petting zoo to turn into a free-range chicken farm with fresh produce, aptly named the Chickopolis. As my name might indicate, I am Greek and my wife Italian, so we're trying to bring some Mediterranean to Ohio. Hoping to bring an idea within my future school framework to life, we plan on integrating animal bioscience, care, and general work into a physical learning adventure. Longing to build something to inspire the hearts of local citizens, a large fountain, myriad statues, structures, and gardens with Greek themes will accompany chicken-shaped hedges, Roman columns, and colorful gardens to adore while waiting for the children, or for all, to enjoy. However, my dreams are on hold as I cannot sleep. I know there are men like me out there that can't sleep in this way, with families and plans. Plans for men in our class that take years to finance, plan, and execute. More chaos will not lead to more plans. I can feel the pain of a leaderless people manifest on my conscience until I fall into a restless sleep and then wake again. Now spring has come, and I cannot build. I am stuck to this chair with the gravity of our nation's injustice keeping me from moving forward, keeping me from my wife and son, keeping my mind nowhere but here. Locking me to these thoughts, clanging around like the sounds of a busy restaurant kitchen. The cruelest of ironies being, after finding the quiet peace I have longed for on my own land, disrupted by what my heart tells me I am called to do.